Good morning. It is good to be together via Zoom and at the Aldea today. This fellowship is a place where we can bring our imperfect selves and be accepted as we are with love and friendship. Buenos días. Estamos contentos de estar juntos vía Zoom y en la aldea. Esta comunidad es un lugar donde podemos traer nuestro ser imperfecto y ser aceptados tal como somos con amor y amistad. We gather for so many reasons: to search for truth and meaning, to be inspired, to serve justice, and to build loving community. Nos reunimos por muchas razones: buscar la verdad y el propósito, inspirarnos, servir a la justicia y construir una comunidad amorosa. My name is Cathy Cánepa, and I will be our service leader today. Before we enter our worship time, we have a few announcements. As some of you know, Abba House is the migrant shelter in Celaya, and they have recently lost salary funding for Pastor Ignacio, their nurse, and 4 other staff members due to the cuts to USAID. You can support them and learn about them by coming tomorrow at 4:30 here at the Aldea. And there's Judy Jackson, who made these films. We are going to be doing a showing of Judy's award-winning documentary, Where Can We Live in Peace? The Migrant Crisis. And it will be preceded by a new and uplifting 10-minute film about how ABBA, the UN, and the Mexican government are helping refugees to settle here in Mexico. Now, all donations will go to support ABBA House, so please come, bring your friends and neighbors tomorrow, Monday, here at 4:30. Now, all of you contribute to the life of this fellowship just by coming on Sunday morning. But if you want to dip your toe into volunteering a little more, we could use more people to bring flowers on Sunday morning. So if you want to consider that, would you contact Jerry Rossing, who's going to wave and stand up? There's Jerry, and he can help schedule. Thank you. And our second men's group is still forming and looking for new people, and they're meeting at La Frontera Restaurant this Friday at 1 p.m. And you can see Tom Morlowski after the service. Where's Tom? Okay, men. Look at him. Okay, thank you. And Circle Cena will be meeting Monday, February 24th, at 5 p.m. It will be a wonderful buffet barbecue theme, and you can reserve with Ellie Goodwin. At the information table, absolutely, that's what I meant. So, after the service, those on Zoom are invited to stay connected, to have a discussion with others in the main room. And if you're visiting on Zoom, please write your name into the chat box so that we can greet you after the service. And those who are with us at the Aldea can join for coffee and cookies, and then visit the welcome table with lots of information, opportunities, and also information about our Social Justice Foundation. And visitors, friends, members, you are all invited to our weekly Thursday lunch and games event here in SMA, and to attend Reverend Tom's coffee hour on Zoom. So go to our website, UUFSMA.org, to find previous services on video, check various events, and information on how to become a member. Now, if we have any visitors here today, if you are comfortable doing so, would you stand up so we can see who you are and then meet you in coffee hour? Welcome. Okay, we'll be learning about you later. Our two speakers today are our own Ann Kuffner and Carla Espinoza. Ann Kuffner began attending UUFSMA in 2018. She's currently a service leader, a member of the Sunday Service Committee, and a board member. For the last 2 years, she wrote and edited all of the Sunday Service publicity articles. And she's also written many travel and lifestyle articles for International Living. And before moving to San Miguel, Ann was their full-time Belize correspondent. And in her professional prior life, she spent 35 years as an environmental chemical engineer, working in a variety of companies. Ann and her husband, Mike, the cookie guy, enjoy relaxing in their El Capricho home, and their favorite activity is kicking up their heels at Arthur Murray's dance events. And Ann and Mike recently returned from the International Dance-O-Rama event held in Cabo San Lucas, where Ann competed for the first time. Now, Carla Espinoza, born in Chihuahua, came to San Miguel as an infant to be raised in the embrace of her paternal family, whose roots go back here for generations. Carla's journey with UUFSMA began in 2023 when Robin Loving invited her to become part of the community. Since then, she's embraced an active role serving on the Sunday service and welcoming committees, and she also contributes as a steward for the Social Justice Foundation grantee, CEDESA, and as a member of the MIR Recruitment Task Force. And her son, Jerome, is a proud member of the Young Explorers program. And now, Ann will join us for opening words.
Good morning. As we shift gears and begin the service, some of you may be wondering, what exactly is syncretism? And why has the Sunday Service Committee decided to dedicate an entire Sunday service to this topic? For the opening words, I would like to set the stage by reviewing syncretism's definition, taken from the Oxford Languages Dictionary. Syncretism is the amalgamation of or attempted amalgamation of different religions, cultures, or schools of thought. Today's service will focus on religious syncretism, which is the fusion of multiple religious ideologies, rituals, and customs blended into a single unified belief system. This occurs when diverse cultures come into contact with one another and over time adopt aspects of each other's cultures and traditions. So why are we dedicating this service to syncretism? Living in the Spanish colonial town of San Miguel de Allende, we are surrounded by examples of both cultural and religious syncretism. Mexico's religious traditions have evolved over time, blending indigenous spiritual traditions with those of the Spanish conquerors, who were Catholics. As Unitarian Universalists, we seek to understand and appreciate the culture and traditions of our neighbors. There certainly is plenty of opportunity for us to do that in San Miguel de Allende. Another reason to explore religious syncretism is that the Unitarian Universalism incorporates traditions from many other religious faiths. You could say that we embrace syncretism whether we realize it or not. And now we light this chalice as we begin the service. I invite you to rise in body and spirit as we sing hymn number 193, Our Faith is But a Single Gem. Please remain standing for the covenant. Words will appear on the screen.
Remain standing as we recite this fellowship's unique covenant. This is our promise, which we aspire to, of how to be in relation to each other and the larger world. I will lead us in English, and then Carla will lead us in Spanish. The words will appear on the screen and are in your order of service. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Did anyone bring up any cards? No? Okay. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tom Rossiello, minister of this fellowship, and it is really wonderful to be back with you this morning. This congregation strives to always be a caring community. We're here for each other in good times and in difficult times. As is written in the Talmud, when we share a joy, the pleasure is doubled, and when we share a sorrow, the pain is cut in half. We want you to know that the ministry of this congregation, lay professional and volunteer, is here available to you. If at any time you need the assistance of a minister or help from our care team, just let us know. And there's information how to contact me or the care team on our website, UUFSMA.org. Each week in our service, we share the significant joys, sorrows, and concerns of our members and friends. And for each joy, sorrow, or concern, we light a candle, indicating that that person, that thought, that prayer is held in all of our hearts this morning. And as a reminder, if you wish to share a joy, sorrow, or concern in an upcoming service, please email it to me during the week, or you can write it on an index card that the ushers have when you come in here if you're at the Aldea, or if you're with us on Zoom, which many of you are this morning, you can type it into the chat now, and Diego will give me a heads up if anything comes in there. So let's start with a joy. This week, Linda Soren celebrated a birthday, so we sent her birthday best wishes. She writes about that she celebrated her birthday with a good friend, received greetings from family, former colleagues, and had a very touching phone call with all of her children. She says, "I'm grateful to have reached this stage when 2 years ago the prospects were a bit dubious that I was going to be here, and I'm eternally grateful." Linda also has 2 losses this week, and we light 2 candles of sorrow and remembrance. The first for her friend Bob Fredericks, who passed away on January 27th in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where he'd been living since he left San Miguel a number of years ago. Bob was a retired dentist and for many years participated in marathons around the world. Another candle is for David Lieberman, husband of Martha and father of 2 daughters. He'd been suffering for a long time, passed away this week. May he rest in peace. A candle of joy and gratitude from Donna Schubrooks, who is recovering at home now, and wrote to me and said she now welcomes visitors. And she thanks Mis Hermanas and other UU friends for help with meals, grocery shopping, transportation, and all the rest. She writes, "What a beloved community indeed." A candle of joy and caring for Ann Geyer, who had successful hand surgery to prepare a broken hand this week in Houston. We're so glad it went well. Our only sorrow is she has to stay in Houston for 6 weeks to recover and get the pins removed. A candle request from the Reverend Andrea Abbott, who many of you know has been a regular guest minister at this time of year. She's unable to be with us this year, even though we invited her because of family matters. And she writes, "This is usually the time Arn and I are usually in SMA, so the SMA UUs are on my mind. We're unable to come this year because we'll be in Alaska. Arn's nephew, his sister's son, died suddenly just after Christmas. She's having a funeral this week and wants us to be part of that. She lives near Anchorage, as do her children, so we'll be there. Quite a few people in the congregation know his sister Colette. I remember she was here with him. So she's asking to keep her in the thoughts and prayers of everyone this week." We light a candle of continued support for Jerry and Fastrup and Gloria Pardo as they continue to recover together at home. And another one for Bonnie McDowell, who continues to recover after successful hip replacement surgery. No? Okay, none on Zoom. Our joys, sorrows, and concerns are certainly not limited to the personal ones that we share. We light a candle of great concern for all those being targeted by cruel policies of the current U.S. administration. Immigrants, LGBTQ people, especially trans people, those who benefited around the world from USAID, and the likely harm that will come to so many as a result of cuts there, cuts to health and educational programs, cuts to consumer protection, and so many other important services. And on a more positive note, let's light a candle of solidarity for all of those who are fighting back. The UUA this week joined nearly 30 other major religious denominations to put a stop to the order allowing ICE and other law enforcement to enter churches, temples, and places of worship to make arrests. And that's before the courts now. And a candle in solidarity with those who are speaking out with peaceful demonstration and local action. Malcolm and I were this past week in the city of Worcester, Massachusetts, where I was getting medical attention there. And while we were there, the city passed a resolution becoming a sanctuary city for trans people. And that's happening in other places as well. We light our blue and yellow candle, as we do each week, for all those injured, killed, displaced by the unjust and unprovoked war in Ukraine. And we pray for a peace that ends the war while protecting the rights and territory of the Ukrainian people. We light our other candle for the people of the Middle East, grateful for the hostages and prisoners that have been released and reunited with families, and we pray that that process will continue. We hope that the much-needed medical care, food, shelter will continue to reach the people of Gaza. We pray that the path to peace will emerge, that the ceasefire will hold, and the path on that path is one that will recognize all the rights of the people of the region. We light a final candle for all those joys, sorrows, and concerns held deep in our hearts, but which remain unspoken this morning. I now invite those of you who wish to come forward to light a silent candle to give witness to whatever you are holding in your hearts this morning, to do so now as we continue in a time of meditation guided by music.
Now that we've defined syncretism, I'd like to start by reviewing a few examples that we all can relate to. Christmas is an obvious example. Did you know that Christmas was originally a pagan tradition and holiday that was later adopted by Christianity? It was first invented by the Romans. As a means to tame the raucous pagan Saturnalia holiday. Saturnalia was an ancient Roman festival held in the honor of the god Saturn. Saturn. Wow, that was quite a slip. Sorry about that. Okay, good. I've got you laughing. It wasn't on purpose, though. It also was a celebration that days would begin to get longer after the winter solstice. While looking back through past services, I found that quite a few of Reverend Rossiello's sermons have included teachings or readings from other religious traditions. Consider the Day of Dead, Thanksgiving, Advent, and Christmas services that were shared during the last few months of 2024. Each of these UU services integrated other faith traditions or parables with the UU traditions, blending them in a syncretic way. This topic has intrigued me for the last 18 years. My husband Mike and I both grew up Catholic, attending Catholic schools in the United States. I assume there are at least a few of you that had that same experience. Those of you who grew up Catholic will likely understand my perspective. The Catholic services and traditions I grew up with were predictable and conservative. In fairness, I've not been a practicing Catholic since I was a teenager, so my perceptions are based upon my experiences as a young woman who spent 12 years attending Catholic school. In the early 2000s, I attended a Spanish immersion program in Antigua, Guatemala. The school incorporated a variety of cultural side trips with our Spanish studies. One of the side trips that we took one day after class was to observe an unusual ritual being performed at a local Catholic church. It was definitely not like any traditional Catholic ritual I had ever seen in the USA. We quietly entered the back of the local Catholic church to observe what I now assume was a cleansing ritual, to cast out evil spirits and bad luck. We were not allowed to take pictures, so the details are a bit fuzzy, but I remember there was a table at the back of the church with items placed upon it as offerings. Incense was burning, probably copal, which I later learned is commonly used in Mayan ceremonies. Some of the items on the table included a bottle of rum, palm fronds, and candles. I vaguely remember that there were other offerings as well, similar to those placed on altars during the Day of the Dead. As we waited, a person arrived ready for his cleansing. I don't know who the person doing the cleansing was. I assume the person performing this ritual was a curandero, but it's possible that it was a priest. Since then, I've seen this type of cleansing ritual held in various places in Mexico and Belize. But this was the first time I had viewed this type of cleansing or casting out of evil spirits inside of a Catholic church. The curandero chanted as he waved the palm fronds around the person being cleansed while blowing smoke at him. He then took some rum into his mouth and spat a spray of rum on this person who was being treated, while simultaneously lashing his body with palm fronds. Our teacher explained that the intention was to rid the person of evil spirits and the bad luck that had plagued him. That entire ritual seemed really strange to me, but the most shocking thing was that it had occurred in a Catholic church. Although no longer a practicing Catholic, this certainly appeared to me to be some kind of a pagan ritual. As Catholic children, we were warned to steer clear of pagans, since they were evil and would eventually spend eternity burning in hell. Right? This particular experience really opened my eyes. Why were Catholic services in Guatemala so different than those in the USA? That was my first experience viewing religious syncretism in practice. I started to wonder, how did this anomaly come to pass? That is when I first became interested in syncretism, although I'd not even heard the word yet. Now let's delve into a bit of historical background to help explain religious and cultural syncretism here in Mexico. The Spanish conquerors believed that the indigenous peoples they encountered were pagan heathens. During the Spanish conquest of the early 16th century, the Catholic Church put significant effort into evangelizing the indigenous population of Mexico and other Latin American countries. This was termed the spiritual conquest, but it was not an easy task. As we know, living in San Miguel, indigenous groups such as the Chichimeca, Aztecs, and the Maya had their own established traditions and belief systems. It was not easy to convert them to the Spanish religion that believed in a single God. They historically had paid homage to multiple gods. I later learned that the Franciscan and Dominican missionaries made major concessions to make Catholicism more appealing to the indigenous people of Mexico and of other New World countries. The Mayans and other indigenous groups did not outright reject Catholicism. Rather, they were willing to selectively accept and incorporate aspects of Catholicism into their existing belief systems. The Catholic missionaries made exceptions to Catholic practices in order to gradually convert the indigenous people to a modified version of Catholicism. They found ways to blend indigenous holidays and gods with Catholic holy days and religious figures. When the Catholic missionaries in Guatemala, where most of the people are of Mayan descent, allowed them to integrate their cleansing rituals into the local Catholic practices, that was syncretism in practice. There are many Maya in Mexico, mainly in Chiapas and the Yucatan Peninsula. In Chiapas alone, the majority of people are indigenous, predominantly of Mayan ancestry. At least 7 different Maya dialects are spoken there. The Maya in the Chiapas region also practice Catholicism, but they have integrated their own Mayan traditions into their Catholic faith and practices, also in a syncretic manner. In February last year, we joined a Vagabundos tour of the Chiapas region. On that tour, we visited 2 Catholic churches in local Maya communities near San Cristobal. They were San Juan Chamula, where the people are Tzotzil Maya, and San Lorenzo Zinaantan. Each of these communities has their own Catholic church. The most unusual syncretic practices we viewed were while visiting the Templo of San Juan Chamula. In this church and the village, the local form of Catholicism is a blend of pre-conquest Maya customs, Spanish Catholic traditions, and more recent innovations. I could easily spend another 10 minutes describing the unusual scene we experienced in the Catholic Church there. But for the sake of time, let me just say that the practices we viewed in Chamula were stranger than the ones I'd seen in Antigua. If you haven't visited Chiapas and tours the churches, I encourage you to do so in the future. While visiting the churches of those 2 Maya villages, you will be able to experience the amazing syncretic blend of Maya and Catholic traditions that still exist there today. Here in San Miguel and the state of Guanajuato, the indigenous tribes are primarily Chichimeca, Atomi, and Nahua. I don't know as much about syncretism as it applies to their rituals or those of Aztecs in regard to Catholic practices in Mexico, San Miguel, and Guanajuato. So Carla will talk about syncretism between Catholicism and the local indigenous tribes as she has experienced it here in San Miguel and Guanajuato. So, why is syncretism so relevant to me as an ex-Catholic and current Unitarian Universalist? It was truly a revelation for me to learn that within Catholicism, there are many different ways of practicing this long-established religion, despite what I had been taught in my youth. I left the Catholic Church at a fairly young age after concluding that no single religion is the only or best religion. I came to believe that it's not which religion we practice, but how committed we are to the spiritual or religious path that we choose to follow. Mike and I joined this UU community because the UU principles align with what we believe and strive to practice in our spiritual lives. Having become a Unitarian Universalist a few years ago, I've come to appreciate that we respect and integrate many other religious faiths and cultural traditions. In the case of syncretism, at least two of the UU principles apply. The third principle, which is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. And the fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. As Unitarians, we recognize and honor all faith traditions and choose to embrace and incorporate those traditions that speak to us. Learning about the role of syncretism in the evolution of faith traditions demonstrates that we are all on a constantly evolving spiritual path. I have come to recognize that syncretism is integral to UU traditions and practices. This approach to spiritual practice enhances the richness of our spiritual journey. Now we'll play a lively cumbia video that is dedicated to the Virgin of Guadalupe, and after that, Carla will speak.
If somebody didn't got the translation, you can raise your hand and Diana will get to you in case you need it. So somebody need it? Somebody here. I'm going to speak in Spanish. The translation in English is, Diana has some copies. So we have an idea what we're talking about. Cuando empezamos a platicar sobre el tema, pensé que sería solo hablar de los conceptos de sincretismo y creí, va a ser bien fácil de abordar. Pero durante la semana, mientras regaba mis plantas medicinales en el pequeño jardín que tengo donde mi Virgen de Guadalupe las cuida, entendí que no iba a estar fácil poder explicar, por lo que iniciaré con mi versión muy personal de lo que entiendo como sincretismo, siendo la tropicalización de un sistema de valores y creencias en otro contexto. Otros lo entienden como una fusión o hasta una mezcla. Dicha tropicalización no solo se da en el contexto religioso, sino que ha generado un impacto en el cotidiano, alimentación, arquitectura y hasta en la política. Para mí, existen 2 ejemplos de sincretismo que han marcado mi vida y que al entenderlos han hecho que, si bien no sean a mi favor, puedo entender de dónde vienen. Uno de ellos es la obligación de las mujeres de vestirse adecuadamente, que viene de una estética que ha estado profundamente inspirada en un sistema musulmán, el cual yo creí que no tenía nada que ver con mi realidad y que está muy lejos. De manera muy gruesa, muy burda lo explicaré, pero durante 8 siglos España fue territorio árabe, entre los años 711 hasta 1492, donde fueron influenciados profundamente por los sistemas de creencias musulmanes, y España conquista México en el año 1519, solo 27 años después. Nuestra independencia se declaró en 1821, así que estuvimos bajo su yugo por 302 años, y ahora estamos a 204 años de distancia. Nada prácticamente. ¿En qué afecta esto actualmente? Simple. El sistema de evangelización que nos trajeron los españoles creó estándares del deber ser de acuerdo al género, y esta tropicalización nosotros la absorbimos por completo, lo que se traduce a que una chica decente debe o no mostrar ciertas partes del cuerpo o no. Si salen temprano las señoras que van a misa, todavía se cubren la cabeza y se agachan a entrar a misa. La segunda es la Virgen de Guadalupe, madre de los mexicanos, protectora de todos y culpable de la fiesta más ruidosa, contaminante y llena de almas vagabundas de todos los tiempos. Su origen se ha documentado desde la introducción de Tonantzin, una diosa mexicana que representa la madre tierra, la fertilidad y la maternidad. Se le conoce también como Yamatecuitli, la jefa anciana, o Cutzcamiaut, la espiga de maíz. Si bien su fiesta es ruidosa, me llama la atención como el culto a la madre de todos, la mujer que tiene la galaxia en su manto, ahora se ha convertido en una señalítica de no tirar basura o de cuidar un espacio en concreto. Si no quieres que tus vecinos tiren basura o vandalicen la pared, ponga usted una virgencita. La única consecuencia es que de repente habrá flores, y lo que suena como una queja, y hasta cierto punto lo es, pero también sucede como algo interesante, que si retomamos el concepto de sincretismo, podemos ver cómo la iconografía se fusiona y se transforma en el nuevo contexto donde la multiculturalidad florece, generando nuevas formas y nuevas creencias, en la cual podemos decir y decidir hasta qué parte de nuestro día a día y qué no. Claro, siendo críticos de lo que sumamos a nuestras vidas y no solo porque ellas existan y ya. Ahora les compartiré elementos que también dan cuenta del sincretismo que experimento en mi día a día, en el cual ustedes también pueden dar cuenta de ellos. El Día de Muertos, los santos y las deidades indígenas, por ejemplo, San Juan Bautista relacionado con Tlaloc, el dios de la lluvia. Las posadas, si buscamos en el ritual de los 9 días de culto a Huitzilopochtli o la Isa de las Banderas. En la gastronomía, los tamales, el mole y básicamente todo, sí, todo lo que tenga en base de chiles, maíz y cacao. En la salud, el uso de los rituales y hierbas para quitar o agregar en búsqueda del bienestar. Hierba de perro, manzanilla, tomas para el susto o simple y sencillamente la pasada de huevo para las malas vibras. Podemos ver la influencia en miles de cosas, arquitectura, en el arte y finalmente en el lenguaje, ese vínculo que nos permite nombrar nuestra realidad, dándonos perspectiva. Como dato chistoso, el tono de las voces y la forma en cómo las alucinaciones nos hablan dependen de nuestra cultura. Pero regresando, poder enunciar tus valores y ser respetado en tu ser entero es parte de nuestro llamado comunitarios universalistas, donde el sincretismo se va logrando adaptar a nuestras experiencias e historia de vida junto con los valores de las personas que están hoy aquí, los que estamos aquí, que al igual que nosotros se respetan y aprecian los 7 principios.
Thank you, Anne and Carla. Wonderful. It's my privilege to lead us into our time for generosity. My name is Paula Peace, and I serve as the chair of your Social Justice Foundation. And today is the offering plate will be the second of 2 given to our UU Social Justice Foundation. If you've already planned to make a gift to the fellowship, thank you so much. Just be sure to notate that on an envelope. Otherwise, all the gifts today will go to the foundation. It's the time of our annual Gifts for Good campaign. As one of our top priorities, our UU Fellowship has always advanced a very high commitment to social justice in the broader San Miguel Unity community and its surrounding villages. The educational, health, and living condition needs of this Pueblo Mágico's marginalized people cannot be overstated. For this reason, the fellowship has established the Social Justice Foundation with the charter to cast a wider net and raise more funds from more sources. Last Sunday, we celebrated the first year of our new Social Justice Foundation, and we were proud to share that we have been able to expand the reach of our work by adding new funding sources. Adding grant funding from the UU Association and adding partnering UU congregations has bolstered the previous policy of one-dimensional support from just our individual members. The new deeper and wider focus on social justice has permitted us to receive and give away more funds in 2024 than ever before. We've even inherited property here in SMA, which, whenever it sells, will be used to create a social justice endowment for future needs. But that hasn't happened yet. And this year is a little tricky because of that. While that is in process, so far, it has added 0 to our funds until the property sells. We've worked hard to bring in new social justice funding, new funds which would add to, not replace, our members, individuals' donations. We estimate we need $40,000 US more in individual donations to support the dozen NGOs who depend on our grant funding. And we have about 6 weeks to get that funding together. I know you've all heard this morning about the slashing of government agencies in the US, and that slashing has really hit home for us. Our beloved ABBA House has just lost $50,000 US in support in salary funding from Church World Services, who are funded by USAID. We are also racing against the clock to solve the severe water crisis in our nearby rural communities. Students are praying for scholarships. Families need housing and preschool education for their children so that they can go to work. Autistic and deaf young people deserve a chance for a future, and we have the nonprofit organizations working passionately right here to give them that chance for a future. At the foundation info table over here after the service, please come and see us. We have all kinds of interesting goodies. An envelope. So your check will fit nicely in this, and you can bring it back next week. We have a trifold brochure that will tell you about all of the 12 NGOs that we already support. Unfortunately, it's out of date already, though, because the word of our foundation has spread, and we anticipate 4 new NGOs, not new in existence, but new to apply to our foundation for support. But this tells you all about everything we're up to. We also, when you bring your envelope back next week, you can't quite yet put a check in it. Oh, we understand. But we have a Gifts for Good form where you can let us know when you think you can bring us that check. And that is going to help us in planning maybe some staggering payments to NGOs. And then if you're any of these people of retirement age, I'm not sure if we have any, we have a How to Give written form with account numbers and details about how you can give a portion of your required minimum deductions. Of course, in the US, that means that you don't pay taxes on that amount of donation. So you'll find all of that over here. Please do come and see us. And whether you can give now or give a gift for later or promise a gift for later, or you can also send a recurring gift of $5 a month. Or you can share, as I say, part of your retirement funds. Please join us in living our UU values. There is no question that the needs are greater this year than ever before. We support the fellowship joyfully with gratitude. And the other part of who we are as Unitarians and why we are coming together and building a beloved community here with each other is because the next step is first us and then our beloved community here in San Miguel. Thank you for your gifts for good. The offering will now be collected and most gratefully received by your UU Social Justice Foundation.
This is in song with hymn number 1003, Where Do We Come From? This is not in your hymnal, so please remain seated so you can see the screen. You can just enjoy the hymn, sing along with the words on the right side to keep it simple, or more experienced singers, feel free to sing the contrasting words on the left. Diego is going to play the first 30 seconds of the video so you can learn the music and repetitive lines, and then he will start from the top.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Thank you for being here with us today, again, either on Zoom or in person. I just want to, before our speakers close the service, want to remind those of you, there's a group of you of about 15 who've signed up to take the UU 101 class. It starts at 1:30 tomorrow, and Deanna will email you as a group the directions on how to get there, the basic instructions, and so forth. There's nothing to prepare for the first class, but we'll give you a bunch of other stuff as it goes along. And we have about 15 people. We might be able to fit one or two more people. If there's anyone who really feels that they want to take the class now and has not yet signed up, you can see me at coffee after the service.
For the closing words, we chose this reading, written by the Unitarian minister, Reverend Sean Neil Barron, because it rings true in regards to diverse religions and traditions that are constantly evolving. One day, your church was born. Maybe it was a gathering of saints called together for common worship of a wrathful God, ceaselessly praying between bouts of decrying the evil of Christmas or dancing. Or maybe a few brave souls answered a notice in the newspaper, curiosity piqued by the announcement of a religion where free thinking and tolerance were bedrocks. No matter how it happened, your church was born. A gathering of people, humble, caring, anxious, and quirky all at the same time, who covenanted to be with one another on the journey of life, death, and everything. in between. And so it began, a faithful few, beautifully imperfect, called to that central task, that human task of connecting, loving, and serving. It was just a baby, and yet it was thrust deep into the human condition, tasked to hold minds and souls, bodies and hearts along the roller derby of disease and birth, infighting and joy, and Christmas pageants. Sometimes all of those at the same time. They gathered to hear the world broken open for insightful sermons, rejuvenating music, and a community whose fierce devotion to each other's well-being rivaled Mama Bear's love for her cubs. But it wasn't always like that, of course. There were the trying times. And I don't just mean Jane or Jack, those stubborn but lovable souls who inhabit the netherworld of committee meetings. No, I mean the trying times, when the church almost split in half over the war or integration, or when the mill left the town vacant, or when the minister crossed that line and the people couldn't speak about it for decades. But somehow you were still there, still on the town common, still the church that everyone recognizes, still the ones that show up every time you were called on, still using the communion silver until you voted to sell it. New people came and they changed things. Small things, big things, things that nobody noticed as it happened, until suddenly it was hard to even recognize anything anymore. That was a hard moment, a tearful moment. And the other things changed too. The proclamations about God, once heard loud from the pulpit, softened. Wrathful became loving. Distant became intimate. Mandatory became optional. After the war, the nursery and classrooms were overflowing. Each baby dedicated reminded the church of the incredible beauty of life and the gift of this community, all huddled around the baby, would bestow upon this child. The history of your church is more a story of the determination of love to break forth than it is about the tie-dye or chalices, sermon discussions, or social justice committee meetings. The history of the church is the history of human enterprise, evolving in its sights and sounds, yet revolving always around the core. The history of your church is the gift of potential and momentum, of baggage and personality. The history of your church is the launch pad from which you spring into action or disarray. Each day your church is born. Please remain seated for the postlude.
De la guitarra mía, al despertar la mañana, quiere cantar su alegría a mi tierra mexicana. Yo le canto a tus volcanes, a tus praderas y flores, que son como talismanes amor de mis amores. México lindo.
naciera al pie de los Magallanes y que me cubra esta tierra, que es una de hombres cabales, voz de la guitarra mía. Al despertar la mañana quiere cantar su alegría.